I was 16 when I left a family party thinking the worst thing I'd carry home was a bruised heart. Then a storm swallowed the highway, and a semi turned my car into scrap metal. In the trauma bay, the doctor said I had minutes, not hours, and they needed my mom's consent to cut me open and save my life. So a nurse put her on FaceTime. My mom answered from a spa with my little sister right beside her, and she didn't even stand up. She just sighed and said, "If it dies, let me know." I don't have time for paperwork. I went under anyway. 18 days later, I woke up with a tube in my throat, metal in my mouth, and one line on the chart at the end of my bed that didn't make sense. New legal guardian. And the name under it wasn't hers. But before I tell you who stepped in when my own mother walked away, I need to know you're here with me. Comment hi or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes just knowing someone is listening keeps you from falling apart all over again. And if you've ever been the one nobody chose, hit subscribe and stay with me, because this isn't just a crash story, it's a story about who saved me when I was already being erased. My name is Jet Marlowe. And now, let me tell you everything. People think kids who grow up in Montecito don't bleed the same way. Big houses, private schools, a car at 16. But no one ever asks what it's like to eat dinner with people who talk about you like you're not there. I was 16 when I realized I wasn't really in the family photo anymore. Not metaphorically, literally. My name is Jet Marlowe. And this is where it started. We were sitting at the dinner table in a house that looked like it belonged in a luxury home spread. Polished floors, crystal glassware. Grant at the head of the table, my mother Marisol across from him, and Brinley to my right, scrolling through her phone and filming everything for her Instagram stories. I sat at the end, the unused corner spot, like some prop someone forgot to remove. We were having salmon, my least favorite, plated perfectly like it had to pass a photo test before it passed my lips. Marisol talked about her upcoming spa weekend in Ojai and a charity auction she was organizing for coastal cleanup. Grant interjected about his newest architectural bid, some eco-luxe mansion in Big Sur. Brinley giggled, twisting her hair and laughing about how one of her posts hit 12K likes in an hour. No one asked me anything. I wasn't part of the conversation. I was a placeholder in a family tableau. Then it hit harder. Marisol picked up a call on speaker. It was another parent from Brinley's school. "Oh yes," she said with that fake warm tone she always used for people she needed something from. "Grant and I are doing great. Brinley's thriving. And the older one's still here for now." She didn't say my name. Not even once. The older one. Like I was some phase she hadn't grown out of yet. After dinner, I retreated to my room, which wasn't upstairs like Brinley's with the ocean view, but in the wing near the laundry room next to the utility closet. When we moved in, they told me it was temporary. It had been over a year. I went looking for an old charger, ended up pulling open a storage cabinet and found a shoebox of family photos. Except I wasn't in them. Photo after photo. Marisol in heels on a vineyard tour. Grant smiling beside her. Brinley in dresses with balloons and cakes and matching mommy-daughter spa robes. There was one of me cropped awkwardly at the edge of a Thanksgiving picture, only half my face visible. Another one labeled family vacation. Maui didn't have me at all. There was also a manila envelope marked confidential, health insurance. It had my name on it. I didn't open it. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me already knew I wouldn't like what I'd find. At school, people assumed I was fine. Montecito kids don't get sympathy. If you live behind a gate, they think your life's figured out. But the truth was, the gate just kept the pane looking polished. Brinley would walk past me in the hall like we weren't related. Her friends whispered about the Ojai trip, the spa reset she and Marisol had planned. She told them it's just a girls' weekend. Mom says it's important to disconnect. No calls, no drama. I was never part of the plan. The only place I could breathe was Ventura. Every few weekends I'd take the drive down to see my grandfather, Warren Alvarez, retired sheriff, part-time fisherman, the only man who ever looked me in the eye and asked if I was okay, and meant it. His place smelled like salt and coffee grounds. It wasn't much, but it felt like mine. We didn't talk feelings. He handed me a Gatorade, nodded at the toolbox, and taught me how to fix a flat. That was his way of saying he saw me. "You coming to the Easter fish fry?" he asked, handing me a flyer with a wink. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. I'll be there early to help out. On the drive back, Marisol's text came through. Don't complicate this week for me. I'm busy. She didn't ask if I was okay. She never did. I stared at the message, a strange cold settling in my chest. Easter was coming, and something in my gut told me it wasn't just about ham and pastel decorations this year. Something was being set in motion, and I wasn't going to like where it led. The week before Easter, the air in the house shifted. It wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, controlled. Like everyone knew something I didn't, and they were rehearsing lines for a show I hadn't been invited to. I came home one afternoon and walked in through the side entrance. Marisol and Grant were in the kitchen. They didn't hear me at first. Grant was pouring something into a glass. Marisol stood by the window, her phone face down on the counter. I talked to Dr. Fenley, Grant said. He recommends boarding. Structured programs are more effective for behavioral stabilization. Marisol sighed. I just want it handled before Easter. Cleanly, no scenes. There's still paperwork. We'll get it done. I've already spoken to Ridgeview. I froze. My backpack hung loosely off one shoulder, my heart stuttering like a skipped beat. Boarding, behavioral, paperwork, before Easter. They were planning to send me away. And soon. That night I waited until everyone was upstairs. I slipped into Grant's office under the pretense of grabbing my charger, but went straight to the cabinet where he kept important files. It was cracked open, sloppy. There was a folder marked Household Assets plus Insurance. I flipped through it fast, too fast, my fingers shaking. Marisol, Grant, Brinley. Their names were on every primary beneficiary line. My name wasn't missing, but it wasn't with theirs. It was tucked in the back marked Prior Dependent with a notation Transition Plan Pending. I snapped a picture of the page with my phone and closed the folder before my stomach could turn more than it already had. The next morning, Marisol drove me to school. Just me and her in the car. The silence was loud. Easter's important this year, she said suddenly. A lot of people will be there. I need things to go smoothly. I said nothing. There's also a new opportunity for you. After Easter, a change of environment, structure, support. You mean shipping me off? I said, watching her reaction. Her smile faltered for a split second. You always assume the worst. I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to make me disappear. She didn't answer. She just turned up the music and pretended like the conversation hadn't happened. That weekend I drove to Ventura. I wanted to tell Warren everything, but the words stuck. I didn't want to sound crazy. I didn't want him to worry. You okay? He asked, handing me a bottle of water like always. I hesitated. Just school stuff. He didn't press. Just nodded and said, if you ever need help, real help, call this guy. He handed me a card. Elliot Crane, juvenile law specialist. I pocketed it and made a joke, but it didn't feel funny. Back in Montecito, I passed by the living room and saw Marisol's iPad buzzing with notifications. One of them caught my eye: Ojai Valley Inn Spa confirmation, full day mother and daughter reset, non-refundable, note, no calls during session. It was scheduled for Easter Sunday. My heart thudded. That couldn't be a coincidence. If something happened, if I needed help, there would be no one to reach them. They'd planned this. The night before Easter, I was packing a bag to stay at Warren's when Brinley knocked. She didn't come in, just leaned against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Just so you know, she said, after tomorrow, everything gets easier. For all of us. What the hell does that mean? She smirked. It means you're not part of this family anymore. And honestly, you never were. Then she walked away like she hadn't just lit a match and dropped it on everything. I stood there staring at the photo in the hallway, Marisol, Grant, Brinley, smiling in front of a Christmas tree. My frame was broken and missing from the shelf underneath. Tomorrow was Easter, and I had no idea that the crash wasn't just coming, it had already begun. I got to Ventura just before noon, earlier than I needed to be. The backyard still smelled like sea salt and old charcoal from last summer, and Warren was already out there pulling folding chairs from the shed. I helped him set up the long table and string the lights, trying to pretend like this was just another cookout. Just another Easter. Here he said, handing me a neatly folded shirt, light blue. Wear this today. Looks good on you. It wasn't new, not exactly. It was one of Dad's old shirts, my real dad, the one Warren had cleaned and pressed and saved. I ran my fingers along the collar, unsure what to say. Thanks, I murmured, and he just nodded like he always did when he gave something that meant more than he let on. By 2 o'clock, the backyard was full. Cousins, uncles, aunts I didn't really know, but who still hugged me too long and asked too many questions. There were deviled eggs, corn on the cob. Someone brought tri-tip from that place off the 33. It felt real, safe. For once, I wasn't background noise. Then came the perfect storm. Marisol arrived like she was being photographed. Flawless white dress, not a wrinkle out of place. Grant parked the Tesla right by the curb like he owned the block. Brinley got out last recording on her phone, twirling in the sunlight. They didn't bring a dish, didn't bring drinks. They brought presents. That was enough for them. Marisol air-kissed an aunt she hadn't seen since Christmas and made a loud compliment about the centerpieces. Grant started talking business with one of my cousins like he'd rehearsed the pitch. Brinley just kept filming. I walked over to say hi, and Marisol turned to a family friend. "This is Jet," she said. "Not my son, just the name." Then she smiled and turned away before I could even respond. I backed off, grabbed a bottle of water, and headed toward the side of the house. I needed a minute. That's when I heard her. Marisol's voice was soft but unmistakable. "Yes, just confirming tomorrow. Full day. Yes, just the two of us. No interruptions, no calls, no paperwork. It's our detox day." She laughed, this smooth, pleased sound. "It's been a long time coming. Just mother and daughter. Real quiet." I froze. Brinley's voice chimed in from behind her. "Finally. No boys. No drama. Just us." My stomach dropped. It wasn't the words, it was how easily they said them. How easily I'd been erased from what family meant to them. I don't know how long I stood there before I walked back out into the yard. Warren caught me halfway across the lawn. "You okay?" I nodded too fast. "Just a headache." He didn't believe me, but he didn't push. I sank back into my chair and tried to eat something, but it all tasted like cardboard. Later, one of my mom's cousins pulled me aside near the grill. She was sipping iced tea and making small talk when she said it. "So I heard you're heading into something new after this." "Your mom said there's a program lined up." I stared at her. "What kind of program?" She shrugged. "Something structured. Good for focus and discipline." She made it sound like a great opportunity. I walked away before I could say something I'd regret. By sundown, I'd had enough. The warmth was gone. The Ventura breeze didn't feel safe anymore. It just felt like the last thing I was allowed to keep. I told Warren I was heading out early. "You sure?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired." He handed me the keys to the old Civic I'd saved up for. "Drive safe. Roads'll get slick if that rain moves in. Text me when you're home." I nodded. "I will." Brinley passed me near the gate, all lip gloss and smugness. She leaned in just enough to whisper, "Mom's busy all day tomorrow. Whatever happens, don't call." I stared at her, stunned, but she didn't stop. Just kept walking like it was nothing. I slid into the car, turned the key. The smell of barbecue still clung to my clothes. I didn't look back as I pulled away. But the wind had picked up, and the sky was shifting. As I merged onto the highway, I kept thinking about Warren's voice. "Text me when you're home," and Brinley's voice. "Don't call." Two different orders. One meant protection. The other meant erasure. And I still hadn't decided who I was going to listen to. The rain hit faster than I expected. By the time I passed the first exit out of Ventura, the windshield was a blur of water and headlights. The wipers were on full speed, but they couldn't keep up. Everything looked smeared, like I was driving through a painting someone had cried on. I glanced at my phone in the console. I typed out a quick message to Warren, heading back. All good. Then I stared at it. What if he called? What if he heard something in my voice? I deleted the message and stuffed the phone into the glove box. I didn't want him to worry. I didn't want him to stop me. I told myself, just get home. Sleep it off. Act like today didn't happen. The road curved through a low stretch and water pooled in the dips. I slowed down. I wasn't being reckless. I remembered Warren's voice. Drive slow if it rains. I checked the speedometer just under the limit. That's when the headlights showed up in my rearview mirror. Bright, close, too close. A black SUV hugging my bumper. Their high beams flickered once, twice, like they wanted me to speed up. But I didn't. The SUV didn't pass. It stayed right there, inching closer, headlights bouncing inside my car like searchlights. I gripped the wheel tighter, heart thudding in my ears. Then I saw it. A decal on their windshield. Something like a school crest or private club. My stomach dropped. It looked familiar, one of those things Brinley always posted from. Some club her friends went to. I didn't have time to think about it. Up ahead, a semi-truck in the opposite lane hydroplaned. I watched it start to fishtail slow at first, then fast, too fast. Its trailer slid across the line like a knife. I swerved. Everything went white. Then sound exploded, metal glass, something tearing. I felt the seatbelt lock across my chest. The world spun, my arms went numb, my head cracked something hard, then silence, and then noise again. Sirens, someone yelling, a sharp light above me, a voice asking, "Kid, can you hear me? Stay with us." I couldn't speak. I tried. Nothing came out. My whole body felt like it was wrapped in wet cement. Hands pulled at my jacket. Someone was checking my pockets. My wallet was on the floor open. My student ID. A folded business card, the one Warren gave me. I saw a paramedic pick it up, glance at it, then stuff it into my coat pocket like it didn't matter. But it did. They strapped me to a board, lifted me into the back of the ambulance. I could hear them talking. "Name Jet Marlowe," someone muttered. "No paperwork," says Wexler. "What? That's not what he said. That's what's in the system." Muffled voices. Then one of them, insurances flagged. "We need to check eligibility." Then a pause. "We don't have authorization." "Family contact." Another pause. "Mother's unavailable. No calls allowed during spa treatment. Listed under Do Not Disturb. No other guardian listed." I tried to move, tried to speak. Nothing. The sirens got louder, the lights harsher. I heard the doctor as the doors swung open. "Get him in now. We're losing window time." I wanted to scream. I wanted to say I wasn't alone, that someone was waiting for me, that I mattered to someone. But all I could think about was the message I didn't send. Heading back. All good. It would have been a lie. But at least he'd know I tried. I don't remember being wheeled in. I don't remember the white light or the metallic clatter of gurney wheels over tile. What I remember is pain blooming inside me, like something alive clawing upward from my gut to my ribs before it all dissolved into nothing. Later they told me it was internal bleeding, a ruptured spleen, possible cerebral edema, contusions, broken ribs, a shattered collarbone. It sounded like a list someone might rattle off in a courtroom. Not injuries, but evidence. What I didn't know, what no one knew yet, was how much of the next hour would come down to a FaceTime call. The surgeon needed a signature. I was 16, unconscious, legally a minor. And the woman listed on the hospital records as my guardian was Marisol Wexler. A nurse named Karen dug into the system. She frowned as she clicked through the contact files, her eyes catching something off. "That's strange," she said quietly to a colleague. "No secondary emergency contact on file. Just her. No grandfather, no extended family." Another nurse helped her dig deeper into the record's back end. Buried under layers of form fields and quiet edits was Warren Alvarez, listed under other contacts not flagged for emergency communication. The implication was clear: someone had gone in and reordered the priorities. The one man who would have dropped everything to save me had been shoved to the bottom of the list. They had no choice. They tapped the number listed for Marisol, The screen lit up with golden light and soft music. It looked like a commercial. Marisol was reclined on a plush spa bed, white robe, head wrapped in a towel, some kind of facial mask half settled on her skin. Brinley was next to her, grinning like it was the best day of her life, phone in hand, already mid-selfie. Mrs. Wexler, the surgeon, said as calmly as possible, "Your son is in critical condition following a vehicle collision. He has internal bleeding and potential brain trauma. We need emergency authorization to proceed with surgery." Marisol blinked lazily. "Wait." Hujet, the nurse, clarified. She didn't even sit up, just waved one manicured hand. "If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork." I wish that line was fiction. It wasn't. Brinley snorted, held up her phone, and snapped a picture of the FaceTime screen, me unconscious, blood on my face tubes down my throat. She giggled like she'd just won a bet. The nurse froze her hand, trembling as she lowered the device. A third nurse in the background muttered, "Save the call log. Record everything." Another doctor stepped into view and tried again. "Mrs. Wexler, you understand this is a legal matter. He's a minor." Marisol exhaled, annoyed. "Fine, call his grandfather. Warren Alvarez. He'll sign whatever. I'm done here." Then she ended the call. That's when things moved fast. The ER team located Warren's name in the extended contact list and dialed. He picked up on the second ring. He didn't ask for details. He didn't ask what happened. The second he heard my name and the word critical, he was gone. Out the door through the storm keys in hand. He arrived at the hospital drenched from head to toe, shoulders squared like he was walking back into a war zone. "I'm Warren Alvarez," he told the front desk. "Where is he?" They took him straight to ICU. In a side hallway, they handed him the forms. Consent for surgery, emergency decision-making authority, financial responsibility should it come to that. He didn't hesitate, signed every page. Fast, neat, decisive. When he entered the prep room, I was already halfway sedated. Still, they gave him 30 seconds. He stepped to the edge of the bed, took my hand, and whispered, "I'm here, kid. I've got you. You're not alone." Then the doors closed behind him, and I disappeared into the bright silence of the OR. What no one knew, not the doctors, not even Warren, was that while they were working to keep me alive, Grant Wexler was already on the phone. Not to check on me. To his financial advisor. He wanted a note on the insurance file, no financial liability from his side. All medical authorization would fall to Marisol. No media contact, no signatures, no paper trail. Let Marisol carry the mess. Let the kid survive or not, just keep my name out of it. That's how they moved. As if I was a headline waiting to happen. Not a boy. Not her son. Just a problem being handled. By the time the surgery began, the hospital was already updating my chart. An internal note flagged by the risk management team stated current guardian declined life-saving intervention. Alternative party signed under emergency clause. And deep inside the system, a new line was added. Under legal guardian, the cursor blinked. And then typed, Warren Alvarez. The ICU was too quiet. Monitors beeped, machines hissed and clicked, but everything felt muffled like sound was being filtered through water. Warren never left. He sat in the hard chair beside my bed jacket, slung over the armrest, one hand always resting on my arm. If a nurse so much as glanced toward my chart, he was already asking questions. What's his oxygen saturation? Why did the heart rate spike just now? He wasn't just my grandfather anymore. He was my line of defense. By the second day, he'd already requested printed copies of every record the hospital had on my file, especially the FaceTime call. He'd worked homicide before retiring. He knew how systems buried things. And he knew how to make sure nothing got erased. He had them burn the audio to a thumb drive, had the call log notarized. A risk management rep from the hospital met with him that afternoon. There's sufficient evidence, she said carefully, to categorize this as medical neglect. The fact that the legal guardian declined urgent intervention for a minor puts us in mandatory report territory. She paused, then added, We'd like to know if you want to proceed with an emergency transfer of guardianship while the patient is still unconscious. For his safety. Warren didn't even blink. Violet. By that evening, Elliot Crane was standing in the ICU hallway, a stack of documents under his arm tie loosened but eyes sharp. He reviewed everything. The call transcript, the nurse statements, the image of Brinley's smirking face over my broken body. "This won't stay quiet," he said. He wasn't wrong. By morning, a staff member told Warren that a version of Brinley's screenshot had already made its way through group chats at her school. Students were sharing it in whispers, captioned with things like, "Guess he finally crashed." Elliot didn't just see a bad joke, he saw a gift. "This is actionable," he said. "Defamation, emotional abuse, targeted harassment. It helps build the case that Montecito was not a safe environment, especially with a minor involved." Warren nodded. "Do whatever you need." The next day, Elliot got a call, not from Marisol, not from Grant, but from a law firm that smelled suspiciously like PR. They weren't asking for forgiveness. They were offering silence. "Settle this quietly," the man on the phone said. "Let's not make this messier than it already is." Elliot smiled like a wolf. "Put that in writing." By that afternoon, he was standing at the front gate of the Wexler estate in Montecito, with a court officer and an envelope. "Emergency guardianship petition, formal complaint, notice of pending medical expenses." The door opened. Marisol stood in a white sweater dress, face tight. "You can't be serious," she said. "I am," Elliot said. "Have a good evening." Behind her, Brinley burst into tears. "She's saying I posted it by accident," Warren later told the nurse. "Now it's my fault for being in the hospital." The court fast-tracked the hearing. Children, medical negligence, social fallout. Even the system couldn't ignore that. By day's end, Elliot had everything lined up. Witnesses, call logs. My new medical chart with Warren listed in bold at the top as primary decision-maker. I was still unconscious when the change was entered officially. Somewhere across town, Marisol sat in her curated living room staring at the court order that proved she'd lost something she didn't even try to keep. And in the ICU, Warren leaned forward, resting both hands on the bed rail. "I've got you, kid," he whispered. And this time the law backed him. The first thing I saw when I woke up wasn't a ceiling. It wasn't my grandfather's face or the blur of a nurse or even the blinding white of ICU lights. It was a clipboard. More specifically, a chart clipped to the edge of my hospital bed. At the bottom, in bold capital letters, a phrase I couldn't process fast enough: "New legal guardian." And right underneath that, a name: Warren Alvarez. My throat burned. My ribs hurt. Something was in my nose, my arms, and I was pretty sure I couldn't feel my left leg. But all of that was background noise to that single line. Something had changed drastically while I'd been unconscious. Someone had made a decision that saved my life. And it wasn't the woman who gave birth to me. "Hey," a hoarse voice said from beside me. I turned slowly. My grandfather sat in the stiff hospital chair, his elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he'd been praying or bargaining with something that didn't listen much. His eyes were bloodshot and rimmed in salt. "You're awake," he breathed, then pressed the call button for the nurse without taking his eyes off me. "You're safe now, Jet." I wanted to speak, but my lips barely moved. My voice cracked like wet paper. Still, I managed 2 words. "What happened?" He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't baby me. Didn't pretend the truth would come later. "You were in a car accident on the 101 driving home from Ventura. It was bad. A semi jackknifed in the rain." He paused. "You almost didn't make it." I closed my eyes and the memories flickered, metal screaming glass raining a woman's voice on the phone saying, "Don't call me tomorrow. We'll be at the spa all day." He saw something in my face shift. "You remember something?" "I remember leaving the cookout." He nodded slowly. "That's where it started. He told me everything else, that the trauma team needed immediate consent to operate, that the hospital called Marisol because she was still listed as my legal guardian, that she was in Ojai with Brinley mid-facial, and when asked for permission to save my life, she said, 'If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork.' Then Brinley laughed, took a screenshot of me on a stretcher, bleeding. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My heart wasn't breaking, it was going numb, like someone had turned off the pain just long enough for me to float above it watching. Hospital staff recorded the call, Warren added. They flagged it for risk management. That was enough for Elliot, our lawyer, to petition for emergency guardianship transfer. The court agreed. I signed the papers. I turned my head toward the chart again. So it's real. It's real, he said. You're not going back there. I felt that line settle in my chest like the first breath of clean air after smoke. I wasn't going back to Montecito. Not to her. Later that afternoon, a nurse came in to update my file. She confirmed my name, date of birth, and said something about how I'd originally been logged under the Wexler name, Grant's last name, because of an insurance record mismatch. That name again. Wexler, a name I never chose. I remembered that locked drawer in Grant's office. The insurance forms. The one with my name blacked out, replaced with something cleaner, more convenient. They'd been planning something. I knew that now. It wasn't paranoia. It was strategy. Elliot visited that evening. He asked one question. Jet, do you want to return to your mother's home? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just shook my head and said, that's not my home. He nodded. That's all I need. The next morning, the hospital buzzed. Not with alarms, but with energy PR reps pacing the hallway, a man in a crisp blazer asking for a quiet conversation on behalf of the Wexlers. He offered a donation to the hospital if the situation could be handled with grace. Elliot told him to get lost. In more elegant legal terms. I watched it all from my room, knowing I was the storm they were trying to contain. Then came the emergency hearing. Elliot wheeled me into the courtroom. Warren walked beside me. I hadn't left ICU for more than 5 minutes in 2 weeks, and now I was sitting in front of a judge in Santa Barbara with an IV still taped to my hand. Marisol showed up looking exactly how I remembered, expensive, immaculate, performative. She didn't look at me once. Brinley clung to her like a guilty shadow, makeup perfect, lips tight. The judge asked for the facts. The court clerk played the recording. Marisol's voice filled the courtroom, breezy and cold. If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork. Then Brinley's laugh. The room went still. Nurse Huang testified. So did Dr. Kaplan. Elliot presented the call log, the missed surgery window, the screenshots. Every digital breadcrumb, every omission from the hospital contact file. They'd tried to erase my grandfather from the records, erase any backup plan that didn't involve them. They removed protective contacts, shifted insurance coverage, changed his last name in some systems. It was structured neglect, Elliot said. By design. The judge took it all in, then issued the ruling. Temporary guardianship officially transferred to Warren Alvarez. All rights of parental medical decision-making revoked from Marisol Wexler. I left that courtroom with more pain than I walked in with, but for the first time in my life, it wasn't pain someone else had the right to ignore. And outside, as the cameras started rolling, I heard Elliot whisper to Warren, they'll either try to play victims or drag this out in court. But this isn't over. I looked at him. It wasn't fear in his voice, it was readiness. Recovery wasn't a montage. It wasn't sunshine through windows or inspirational music. It was me. In a back bedroom at Warren's house in Ventura, learning how to stand on one leg while a nurse held my elbow. It was the sound of my own breath as I tried to put weight on a foot that still didn't feel like mine. It was dropping a spoon twice during breakfast because my fingers shook too hard to grip anything. But it was also progress. Warren cleared out his old office to make space for my recovery gear. He didn't hover. He didn't pity me. He just brought me water and listened when I cursed at the pain. I started therapy with Dr. Mira Shah. She didn't ask about the crash, not at first. She asked me what it felt like to sit in silence in a house where people only looked at you when they needed something. I told her it felt like being erased. We worked from there. Then the text started. Marisol sent one first. I know you're hurting. So am I. I wish you could see the full picture. Then I've lost everything, Jet. Don't take away what little I have left. I didn't respond. I showed Elliot instead. He told me to keep every message. They aren't apologies. They're optics. A week later, news broke that Grant had filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, public reputation, financial preservation. He cut ties fast and clean, and Marisol was suddenly alone. Brinley's school issued a statement about disciplinary review. Her scholarship applications disappeared overnight. Montecito wasn't a fortress. It was a house of cards. The final custody hearing came 6 weeks later. I walked into that courtroom on crutches, not because I wanted pity, but because I refused to be wheeled anywhere again. I testified last. I told the judge the truth. That night I said when the doctor said I needed surgery and my mom declined, something in me died before my body ever could. I wasn't her son. I was a file, a liability, something to manage. I looked at Marisol then. She was crying, or trying to. I'm not asking for money. I'm not even asking for an apology. I'm asking to be free, to stay where I'm safe. I looked at Warren. That's with him. The judge ruled quickly. Parental rights permanently terminated for Marisol Wexler. Full legal guardianship transferred to Warren Alvarez. The court authorized adoption proceedings. The rest happened fast. A lien on the Montecito property. Hospital bills filed through civil court. Marisol's employer dropped her. Brinley transferred schools. Grant remarried someone younger and even more vanilla. I signed my adoption papers at age 17. I didn't change my name. But I changed everything else. I finished high school, enrolled in a state college near Ventura, studied social work. Today I work with kids like me. Not all of them survive. Not all of them make it out with someone like Warren in their corner. But when they look up at me and ask, "How did you get out?" I tell them the truth. Someone stayed. That's all it takes sometimes. One person who refuses to leave when it's inconvenient. One signature on a hospital form that says you're worth it. The last thing I read in that hospital was new legal guardian. Now I know what that really meant. It meant family isn't who raised you, it's who refuses to let you die.